On the back straightaway, into turn number 3, thick thin, still 3 wide, Brandon Feeney, high, wide, and handsome. He's going to go to the outside and get past Camillo.
I don't mean to be two birds and bees with you folks, but this is how cautions are born.
All right, welcoming this week's guest. We're actually going to have Roger Muth on this week, as our intended guest is unable to make it due to a conflict in timing and scheduling, etc. Which does happen from time to time. Roger was able to bail us out very last minute, and honestly, a great guest to have on because he's talked about some stories. Roger is a iRacing announcer who has also got to, take that iRacing announcing experience and move into real world applications, which we got to talk about, and which it's honestly, it's a great thing that I think our community has, where iRacing can be used as a tool not only for drivers to keep fresh, but announcers to keep fresh, to try new things and stuff like that. And honestly, I think it's another cool way that motorsports has an advantage on a lot of their sports and communities and stuff like that, because you can't play Madden and be better at the game. Like, you might be able to run routes or something like that, but not even run routes, but like create routes or plays, stuff like that you can try, and then all right, well, we'll try it in real life, see if it works. But you still have to hit the gas pedal, the brake pedal, and the steering wheel in the game. And announcing, you still got to call what you see, no different than what you would be at a racetrack. Not throwing shade anywhere, but yeah. So Roger gets to talk about some of the cool experiences that he's had that's led from iRacing, and some cool things that he's got to go through, and stuff I got to learn today, which was, even I didn't know he had done. And then we always throw some shade to some of our friends' way a little bit, just so they have to watch now. But yeah, other than, I'm not going to give much of a week review, other than if you've been watching my social media, you'll see I got the modified running this week. Nothing much, and just running, but break it from its winter's nap and stuff like that. But you know what? We're gonna bring Roger Muth on, and hopefully I don't say his name wrong too many times and he gets mad at me. But without further ado, we have Roger Muth from the Turn 3 Racing Network. All right, welcome to the Feeney Call this week. We got the one and only Roger Muth. I'm hoping I said it right this time instead of everybody that butchers your name. Not a lot of people may know you from the real racing community, as you're more known for a iRacing broadcaster, as well as dirt modified promoter a little bit. So why don't you introduce yourself here a little bit?
Yeah, how you doing, everybody out there tonight? Well, Roger Muth, like you said it. You said it perfectly, Feeney. Most people can't even actually come close to what I've heard every pronunciation in the world. And you know what? As an announcer, I understand that 100%, because myself, I met you, Brandon. We did the Ontario Legends series. Everybody probably in Canada sitting there laughing, trying to listen to this guy from Pennsylvania, United States, try to announce some of these names. But I've been up and down the road on the iRacing side of thing. I'm an avid dirt fan, obviously, here from Pennsylvania. I have a lot of dirt tracks in my backyard. We got the Kutztown Action Track literally 2 blocks away from my house. So what's better than having a dirt track in your backyard? And, I spent a lot of time growing up in the 90s at the Big Diamond Raceway, along with the Grandview Speedway here in Pennsylvania. A lot of people, you think of Pennsylvania, you think of 410 sprint car racing. Love them. You talk about big block modifieds, 358 modifieds here in Pennsylvania. Love them. It's just, the real world racing, we love it. I'm a guy here on iRacing. I love the iRacing thing. We've been able to promote the Ontario Legends series that we had a couple of years ago, along with a lot of the guys out of the Northeast here in Pennsylvania. I've been able to travel the country. Actually, this week I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Actually, I'm headed out to Indiana to meet some guys from iRacing for a wedding and to check out the speedway too. So, you gotta love iRacing. It opens a lot of doors for you, not only on iRacing but in the real world side of things.
Yeah. It's one of those things that a lot of the iRacers, all of a sudden we want to meet each other in real life, and it's like you didn't realize, like, wait, this guy does one thing, or you race against guys that you don't realize race in real life. It's like, all right, well, I want to go check out this guy that races in real life. Like, he's either way better or way worse. I'm way better in real life than I am iRacing. I think you've called me spending out more times than anything in the like 1,600 leagues you've broadcasted on the Turn 3 network.
Well, that's true. I mean, you talk about spinning out here on the iRacing side of thing. We use iRacing as a great tool to, maybe stay sharp and be able to use a lot of our vision. The thing with iRacing versus what I found out from talking with drivers like yourself and a couple guys here in Pennsylvania is you just can't feel it. Yes, we like to have the fun. We're able to come out and visually see things, but you still can't feel it. You got that in your seat. It's the feeling in your pants. You just don't get that quite here on the iRacing thing.
So you're quite a great announcer, as you're my favorite iRacing announcer, as without trying to suck up. Even if Brett does watch this, freaking, you're still my favorite. And we've always had some fun, jumping some races and stuff like that. Did you start doing the iRacing broadcasting as like possibly experience to jump into like the real world side, or was it just something you found out you were good at?
If you want to go all the way back to the beginning of how I got into this, think back to when you were a child and you had your Matchbox cars out in the driveway or out in the grass, and you kind of wore a path in the grass, and you start calling them. You always get the NASCAR die cast growing up. Obviously, you see the big ones over here. We talked about that on the wall, but those little ones that we used to race around the yard, you'd fake them out. Jeff Gordon going to the outside of Rusty Wallace or something like that. And it just led into that over the years. I never lost that train of thought going from a child to a young adult to where I am now. And I got onto the iRacing side of things, and I wrecked out of a race at Daytona one time, and I was streaming. What are you going to do on lap 2 when you wreck out? You got people out there watching you that are tuning in to have a good time. So I said, the heck with it. I still, mentally you think you can do it. So I just started calling the race from my point of view, and somebody actually passed it along to a gentleman named Rudy Cummings. He actually was over with Max Speed TV. It's where I got my start. He saw the video and said, "Hey, you're pretty good. Why don't you come over here and we got some shows we could put you on?" So I did that for a long time, and that then led into us here with the Turn 3 Racing Network taking a couple of our guys and starting up this program here and transitioning. I've done some things with the real world side of things of commentating. I've even actually had the opportunity to cut a lot of commercials, things that I would have never thought was even anything in the real world could have transitioned from iRacing to commentating real world races to cutting commercials to doing radio. So the doors open from something you would have never thought could have been possible. So I love it. And you talk about, maybe other future doors possibly opening up. You never know who's out there listening. I even got to work with actually one of the most famous people in NASCAR, Bob Jenkins, a NASCAR Hall of Famer, a legend in the NASCAR world. Talk about an opportunity, a guy from Kutztown, Pennsylvania, no experience, getting to work with Bob Jenkins.
Yeah, that's like almost getting to stay boogity 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 with Darrell Waltrip for no good reason.
Sometimes you got to throw in a boogity boogity boogity. Girls go get them.
So, did you like find yourself modeling after a certain announcer? Was it like you kind of followed like Jenkins, or was it like a Bestwick, or like who was it the style that you liked the most? That's kind of like where you modeled after. You just did what came naturally.
There's so many great announcers out there. Obviously, the entire world knows what NASCAR is. At one point or another, you have heard a NASCAR announcer, whether it is, an Alan Bestwick, a Bob Jenkins. Ken Squire is one of those people that everybody, you can mentally hear Ken Squire. And unfortunately, we've lost Ken in this world of, calling races and announcing. But a lot of his calls stick with me through what I do. Now, he's not somebody that I can really mold his style into mine because obviously I like a lot of the short track racing and I like a lot of dirt racing. Ken Squire had a knowledge of being able to break down the big picture of a NASCAR race. He was really good at it. When I think of dirt track racing or short track racing, I think of Johnny Gibson out of the World of Outlaws, a very good storyteller and quick at it. When you're thinking short track racing, when you're thinking dirt racing, it's quick, it's action packed, nonstop, bumper to bumper, side by side, three wide racing. You got to go quick. And that's exactly what Johnny does. And I'm not going to say I even hold the candlestick to Johnny Gibson, but he's probably the best out there that everybody thinks of.
And when you're doing short track racing, you almost have to have those quick one-liners. Where in NASCAR, it's almost like I don't want to say scripted, but it's kind of like not as natural as like some of those like quick one-liners you get from like the third mile ovals and stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of times when I mean, obviously I've worked with Red Light Racing. You race over there with Joshua Buckley and those guys. They run a tight ship on Monday night. That's a lot of the bigger stuff, and you see it develop a lot quicker. So you're able to take a peek down at the notes. My desk on race night, it's scattered with notes and things over here on this screen or up there or over there. You have the opportunity to see it coming and be able to go through the phone book and go, that one. That's the one we're going to use here. All of a sudden, it's coming. I can see it. Where short track racing, I don't have the time to be sitting here paging through all that. It's got to come off the top real quick.
So you had a chance to do the real life with where was the event you worked with Bob Jenkins?
I actually had the opportunity to work with Bob Jenkins and Alex Hyde from MRN Radio. That was over on Podium Esports. We did a California Clash, which was a week-long event. We weeded through some of the actual best iRacers along with real-world racers. And then we had a 100-lap race at the Michigan International Speedway. So we brought some of the best from iRacing, some of the best from the real world, and we all sat down together for a week. And you want to talk about an event and some of the stories that Bob Jenkins and even Alex Hyde were able to talk about. So you think about that. You have MRN Radio, where you got to paint the picture for the people that can't see it. And then you have Bob Jenkins, who they can see the story developing, but you're putting your own words to it. And then you have our point of view from the iRacing side of things. It was an event that myself, I'll never forget. And I'm sure the other people that work behind the scenes, Ryan Bauer with Podium Esports, you're just never going to forget those moments of all those personalities coming together for 1 week.
So obviously you're just welcome to second child in the world, and you've taken a little bit of a break from full-time announcing because I think it was at one point you had a race league that you were announcing almost every night of the week.
Yeah, at one point, actually, during the COVID, once I did the Ontario Legends series with you and all those guys over there, I think we were doing 8 broadcasts in a 6-night span. You want to talk about taking up a lot of your time. And yes, I did actually back in February, my wife and I, we gave birth to, well, she gave birth. It's not possible for me. But we welcomed Michael, our second son. Mark, our oldest one, is 4.5 now. And it's absolutely amazing, coming from a guy I grew up with. My mom had all girls and then me, and then my brother 8 years behind me. There's an 18-year gap. So for me to have 2 boys off the start, I don't want to say it's weird. I don't want to say it's odd because I'm a male and I grew up in the world. We all have our male friends, but I grew up in a house full of women. So it's a little weird.
You finally got the advantage on your side.
And that's what it is. My wife does say that. And I actually told her I'm going to have to get her a sticker that says, boy mom.
Yeah, you got the mini muse.
What version 1, 2, and 3?
So oh frick, I forgot. So I still want to get you up here to call like a race up here for maybe if we get the Ontario Legend Series up at Peterborough Speedway, we can get you in the booth for that.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, I still see them. I still obviously follow the Facebook page for the Ontario Legends, and it's weird. A guy from Pennsylvania following a lot of the Canadians around and seeing what they're doing up there. Guys that I've actually never met, but because of the social media and the iRacing connection, I'm able to follow their racing careers. Obviously, I talk to you pretty much on a weekly basis. We're able to exchange, gestures and blows and those inside jokes on a weekly Monday or Thursday night. But I mean, Adam Teo, I believe I saw, did he get a new one? I forget. Was that Adam Teo I just saw?
Adam Teo, I think, has I think they call them outlaw midgets.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of those drivers. I had no idea who he was, and now he's on my Facebook popping up here and there about what he's able to do north of the border.
So when are you going to come up here and like check out some north of the border dirt cars? I think you got to get yourself to Ashwegan Speedway. See
Well,
some five wide street stocks and some sprint cars.
one of the greatest things that we live in this time, this era, is not only do I live on the iRacing side of thing 99% of the time, but we have Flow and we have YouTube and all these things. And I've been able to watch the races up there, especially when the big names come through. Stuart Friesen, I just showed you the diecast. I'm a Stuart Friesen fan. He's from Canada, now residing in New York. But I've seen the track. I'd like to see it in real life because on Flow, the coverage, and on YouTube, because they do a lot of YouTube up there, they have great coverage. So to be able to see it from the virtual side of things to come to see it in reality, something that I really enjoy. And I do plan this year. I know I have a lot of Northeast races here in Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, Connecticut that I'm going to actually attend. I think my passport's still good. I think I did get that brand new fancy ID for the United States, but I think my passport still works.
Well, if you get that passport to come across, let me know. Like, give me a heads up. Not like, hey, I'm across the border. Come meet me now. Like, give me a little heads up. I'll try to get to a couple tracks, see if we can make a weekend out of it if you're already across, and make sure you get the Tim Hortons coffee in you at the same time.
Yeah, I honestly think it's only about a 6.5 hour drive from where I'm actually located, which is Kutztown, Pennsylvania, just down the street from Action Track USA here. It's not a far drive, and I got a Chevy. We can push him to the levee.
Yeah, as long as you don't pronounce it Silverado like what's his name did.
Hey, well, sometimes you got to throw a joke in there about that Chevy Silverado and making sure it gets off the speedway.
Yeah, who was that? Was that Brett?
Brett's a Michigan guy, and he's got all sorts of slang terms that they use up there. So who knows? We've all said it a time or two, though, to make a good joke out of them.
So, and what some people don't realize is, Roger, you're basically half the reason that I have logos and animations, and you took kind of a very vague description of what I wanted and made one of the most badass logos for the podcast up here. So, gotta thank you for that. And like, obviously, you made some logos behind you. You got the Muth in the booth behind you, and
yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things I never. We talked briefly about how did I get into this, or between broadcasting, announcing, graphics, videos, commercials, that is nothing that I truly had a background in. I actually went to a trade school for information technology, and after I came out of it, I hated it. So I don't even use my technology background with my current job that I have, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So between all of that, that is all self-taught. And that's actually something I'm very proud of. I'm not ever going to say I'm the best or anything, because there's always somebody out there that is better than you. And graphics, I can definitely do probably a lot better if I dedicated a lot more time to it. But I did take your I don't even know if you want to say vague or brief. It was just like 2 words. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And that's what we ended up coming up with. And I mean, it's a podcast. You got to have a microphone. I mean, mine's here. It's in my logo too.
yeah, and it's one of those things that like, you gave me like 7, 8 versions of it, and this was the one that stuck. Like, you can see it on the hat and everything here, which I gotta get you a hat down your way because I think you've earned one. But
I got to keep something on my bald head, otherwise you guys would be blind out there trying to watch this, right?
not necessarily. We could have got some little bit of powder, turtle wax, get a sponsor out of that.
We're gonna have to see if Turtle Wax is willing to, or maybe we can get McGuire's even. Maybe go like a step up.
Hey, maybe we can get Granny Hips to give you a tennis ball to put up there.
And he already lost them all. They came flying off the walker.
So, and that's another thing is you come up with the nicknames for a lot of the drivers, and I don't want to say it's politically correct because like they are like they're not really offensive, but like they're funny and like everyone's like cool with it. I don't know if it's our group of guys or if it's just like how do you like be like how'd you get Granny Hips for Josh? And it's like you have the Storm for the North, Max Terrio, and like what I mean, like where do you keep getting all these nickname ideas?
It's pretty much you got to sit down. You know how I come in and I sit down with you guys, maybe an hour or half hour before the race. And I may not always say a lot because I'm letting you guys have your practice time. I'm letting you guys have, it's your guys' night. So I come in and I listen and I may pick things up and, pen and paper still go a long way. And I said I scatter everything through my desk. So I may write it down. I may not actually put it in the Brandon Feeney file, but I'm still listening and I still log all that data, all that information and keep it. And that granny hips, that just comes from knowing Josh Buckley and knowing that he has hips problems from back when he was actually in a band and touring. He from jumping around, moving, picking things up. He has hip problems. So that's where the granny hips comes from. And our good friend Ryan O'Donnell actually on Monday night, he made Joshua Buckley's logo and we ran with it. Granny hips, walkers, and canes. That's what Josh Buckley needs. That's what he sells. And anytime that he swings it high in the corner, well, those tennis balls on the bottom of his walker, they just went flying.
And the funniest part is he actually looked into like making this a real business, like actually selling walkers and canes. But that's another thing. It's like something like that could turn into a possible real opportunity for him and of a
Yeah.
joke because of iRacing. Like it's weird how the entertainment of our sport carries over to real life possibilities.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, just like how I got my start, you never know who's out there listening and you never know what kind of opportunity is going to pop up and present itself. It's one of those things where if something sounds too good to be true, it's not actually always too good to be true. There is a good possibility that there is something on the other side of that that can be lucrative for yourself.
Yeah. I still think my favorite is because I'm kind of biased is my death metal granny hips where I have Josh singing in the back of the modified.
That's still there. That's still there with your nicely colored green rims that you run weekly.
I changed those finally.
Well, it only took us a couple of years, race fans.
Mind you, tomorrow night I don't know what color the rims are on the SRX car that we're running. Well,
Well,
yesterday when this comes out.
I won't burst your bubble. I will not be there. I don't know if you caught that earlier that I'll be headed to Indianapolis for a friend who, I met through the iRacing platform and we have a lot of in common things of dirt racing. We've been to the Chili Bowl multiple times. I'm going to actually attend his wedding out in North Vernon, Indiana this weekend. So I'm going to have to let the boss man of Al Smith come on in for one race.
All right, so well, you have to at least watch and see if I got the right color rims. O'Donnell whipped up a very quick paint scheme just so I had one because I've been using him since we actually who was it? I think it was Bromley was making my paints, which I still use since the salt flat days.
Oh yeah, Michael Bromley. Bromley was a great somebody also that because of iRacing, he did not have a background in graphic design or painting or anything. He was in the military as an IT guy and came to iRacing and well, we all want to have our own flair and our own paint jobs, just like any other racer on a Saturday, Sunday night. And well, he was a good one here on iRacing. A lot of us used him.
So if you are trying to influence someone like Jennifer Hatch, who you commented on her episode about coming and announcing with you on a Thursday night, what would you say some steps would be to getting into like doing iRacing announcing or maybe even some advice for real life announcing?
You know what? That's a great thing also about the iRacing platform is it could be a stepping stone for a lot of people. I have seen people come through our industry of iRacing and get promoted into their local short track. And then they've taken the next step and headed to a flow, racing. Um, you got to be you. You have to find your own personality. We talked earlier about, who did I think of? Who did I try to mimic? And you can't. You got to be you. At the end of the day, it's you and you're the entertainment value. The racers are on the track. Yes, they're the stars, but you're also the entertainment behind it. Because if I just throw up a broadcast and don't say anything, that's boring. They want to hear a story. They want to know the drivers, and that's your job. So just be yourself and do not be intimidated by how many people are out there watching. I've had one person to 3,000 people at one point watching, and who even knows how many the real view count was for that live stream, because I think it was just about everywhere, even over to ESPN's website. I mean, you just can't be scared. You got to go out and just be yourself. That's the easiest thing, is just to be yourself.
That's kind of like, so I started doing the Demolition Derby announcing halfway through last year. And everyone's like, we had an announcer up here who's super great with demolition derbies. His name is Johnny Bianco. Once again, super quick with one-liners, stuff like that. And everyone's like, oh, you're not doing this like Johnny. I'm like, I can't be Johnny.
Nope.
There will never be another Johnny. Like he like, but I'm like, I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm horrible with announcing names because I'm not great at it. Especially some of our Canadian names are not easy to pronounce. There's letters where there shouldn't be.
I know that. One of my first leagues I ever did, it was a French Canadian league, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I used to have sticky notes on the bottom of each one of my monitors with a breakdown of how to say somebody's name. And I can guarantee you, I still mess them up on a nightly basis.
Hey, but that's the thing is you're learning. And if someone has a problem with it, they'll tell you and they'll message you like, hey, it's pronounced this way or it's this way. It's same as like when you first see my race team name with Beefy Motorsports, it was like Beefree, and I'm like, no, it's like I'm fat, I'm beefy.
There's nothing wrong with that. Just a little extra weight for the car so it turns.
Exactly. Left side weight's always a good thing.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, I don't ever think I'm the best and I don't ever think I'm perfect. And I don't ever expect anybody else that would join in. If Jennifer ever came over here, it's one of those things of just be yourself, just have a good time with it. We're just talking, we're just telling stories about the drivers, we're telling stories about what we're seeing on the screen. And that's just what it is all about. Having fun and meeting new people really at the end of the day is getting to meet those guys. We talked about Joshua Buckley and the Granny Hips and the Higgins family from up there in Massachusetts also and Sean Single from Mondays and Thursdays. Those guys, I got to meet them. That was at the SRX race. You talked about XRS. I've actually been to the Stafford Motor Speedway and saw that race, and that was a good time too.
So, and speaking of Stafford Motor Speedway and stuff like that, have you ever like wanted to because I know Mike Tashrow and stuff like that runs the racing school, which is unfortunately is closing and stuff like that. Have you ever thought because I know you race in iRacing, have you ever thought about jumping behind like a real car? It's like I know you got a couple of those go-karts for the kiddos sitting around, so
I do have the go-karts. My wife was not thrilled when they randomly showed up about a year and a half ago in our garage and me sending her videos when she was not home of, hey, look what he's doing. Where did he get that? I don't know. It just showed up in the garage. But I mean, my dad raced. I have his helmets and some of his trophies and his window nets and suit and gloves over here. He raced back in the 80s at the Big Diamond Speedway before I was born, so I didn't actually get to see him. Me stepping behind the wheel, everybody loves the adrenaline rush. I've gone go-kart racing, can't really compare though go-kart racing to getting into a full size, we're saying street stock, modified, late model. I'm going to say the funding for myself, obviously not there. It's always one of those things that I love to turn some laps. Maybe a racing school like Mike Tashrow has, would be something I'd be able to do. I don't live too far from the Pocono Raceway either. And I know they have the racing experience up there at the big track, which that would be cool. I'm a yearly camper at the Pocono Raceway with a whole bunch of guys from the real world racing to the iRacing side. We all congregate once a year up at the Pocono Raceway camping on the infield.
yeah, Pocono is one of your favorite tracks to go to, I believe. But
Well, it's the closest NASCAR track, so kind of bias on that one.
yeah. And the thing is that's always a race that plays out always really weird. It's either action packed and there's the world's biggest wrecks, or it turns into a field mileage race and you won't know who wins until the last corner.
Or we're all watching and we realize Denny Hamlin's the winner, and I'm sitting in traffic 5 miles down the road 2 hours later going, oh, Denny Hamlin's disqualified. So, I mean, Pocono is good enough for anything. The other year, there was a small tornado that actually went through past the track. I was sitting there holding on to my tent so it wouldn't go because I'm not a very fancy person. I tent camp when I go to Pocono Raceway. So Pocono is one of those tracks. Anything could actually happen throughout the entire weekend. I've seen tornadoes. I've seen parties that I can't discuss here with you. To, you know what? I'm not the only one, by the way, with a big hat. I've seen big hats at Pocono walking around too. So it's crazy. Pocono's maybe not sometimes the most exciting race, but the atmosphere of people that are in Pocono, they care, and that's something pretty cool to see.
Yeah. And is that where turn 3 comes from in the racing network?
A lot of people don't realize, and a lot of people don't put the connection that I'm from Pennsylvania and Pocono has 3 turns, and a lot of our dirt tracks, you can drop the hammer in turn 3. So, I mean, it kind of all came from that. So a little combination of Pocono, a little combination of our local dirt tracks. And at the time when we started it, it was 3 of us.
That works. That's like Andrew Massey from the Ontario Legend Series is Corner 5 Racing, because Mosport, or Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as you might refer to it,
Yep.
Corner 5 was his favorite corner to drive on. So like when you go down the hill, up the hill, like that's where his team name came from, because that's where he liked to race.
Yeah, there's always backstories behind everything. I mean, Beefy Motorsports, you're a hefty guy. That's where you got yours from. There's always a story behind it, and a lot of times, a lot of people are afraid to ask why. Where did that come from? People are always willing to share those stories. All you got to do is ask the question.
And sorry, I had a scroll up thought and then I lost it all of a sudden. The best part about ADHD is it was in and it was gone. I didn't get to ask it. But so I have a friend up here, Chris Lawrence. He was down in Florida there a few weeks ago at the Speed Weeks down. I think it's New Smyrna and stuff like that. So he rents out, I guess, what you guys would call bombers. We call them bone stocks, stuff like that. So maybe if you get across the border, I can see if he's got a practice day available, and we can slap you into one of those cars as practice time.
Well, we'll pull out Dad's old fire suit, and we're always be willing to give it a shot. You never say no, right? Because you never know what kind of opportunities come from there.
Exactly. Get a couple turn 3 stickers, slap it on the car. We'll do some video. We'll shine the helmet and the head up real good.
I'm always willing to put on something for a promotion for anybody, including myself. You see the photos. I got the new hat on today. I have the shirt on. The stickers are over there. The koozies are over there. The old hats, the new hats, the beanies. There's things over there that I don't even know anymore that of what we have.
I'm gonna need
advertising merchandise.
I'm gonna need a new hat. I haven't had my turn 3 hat now in probably a couple months.
Yeah,
My
we
problem
got
is I go through hats really quickly being a mechanic because I hit my head on everything.
greasy hands and sliding it on and off, sweating. The other day I was sweating. I was hoping you know him from iRacing, Josiah Millen. He actually lives down the road. He was a childhood friend of mine. He works on real race cars, modifieds here in the Northeast with Jordan Henn, who we actually proudly support. Jordan Henn. We've been on his 358 modified, we've been on a 602 crate modified. We help them out here and there when we can. But, over the weekend, brand new hat. I decided to wear it for the first time and I'm sweating through it. And I'm like, come on, why am I wearing my hat? I'm going to ruin it. Well, you got to cover up the chrome dome somehow and be safe.
So Roger, running a little bit lower on time here, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes where people can buy the Turn 3 racing merchandise off you, how they can find it, and where they can find the Turn 3 Racing Network.
Yeah, we're over on YouTube predominantly. We used to stream via Facebook and YouTube, and we scaled back from our Facebook operations because of the way that some of the algorithms work and some of the copyright information from Facebook, and the headache just wasn't worth the squeeze that we were getting from it. So you can find us. A lot of our live streams were there 7 days a week, mainly, Dave, KR, Al, Brett, Dawson, myself. We still get Danny to help us out occasionally out there in Utah as a second hand. And Jason helps us out from Tennessee. He jumps in sometimes and gives us some good color commentary, especially him from being down south. Sometimes he gives us those one-liners that we wouldn't have thought of. But you find us over on YouTube. We have our Facebook page, and that's where we don't post it on a regular, but we always have something in stocks, whether it's our hats and all that money that we take from our hats, our stickers, our koozies. We put it back into our overlay programs and our graphics programs that we have here. And we also distribute it through some of our racers, not just here in Pennsylvania. We've also had Vernon Woodard, who's an iRacer. He's up there. He runs at the Devil's Bowl. He runs a 500 micro sprint, 600 micro sprints down here in Pennsylvania. He's actually made the trip down here to Pennsylvania because we have some great 600 micro sprint racing right here in my backyard. We've been Blake Steele down in Alabama. We're on a street stock. I talked about Jordan Henn. We're on his modifieds here in Pennsylvania. And Jared Kunkel, we're on his 600 modified also here in Pennsylvania. So we take that money that we get from our merchandise sale and we try to give it back into the racing community, along with making sure that we can keep our product here on iRacing looking top notch. Because, just like a race car, these gaming and broadcasting rigs are not cheap. I mean, you just picked up a new computer yourself. You know, none of this technology is, well, it's not going to get a walkie-talkie from your local CVS or something. It's quite expensive. So that's where we take all of our merchandise profits and kind of distribute it to where we see into the racing community that we can help them. But I mean, all you got to do for something is just shoot us a message on Facebook. You can shoot any of our broadcast commentators a message. They're also going to be willing to help anybody out and point you into the right direction.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned about my new computer. I spent more on this computer than I did my first actual race car.
Yeah. Trust me, mine sits back there and I don't actually use it. That's a full rig setup back there, and I don't use it. I probably got $8,000 in that thing, and
you don't use it on Monday nights?
I do on Monday nights for about 10 laps, and I go, okay, I can't keep up. I'm just gonna park this and go upstairs with the kids.
Hey, just saying though, Josh didn't wreck this weekend, so like you'll be fine.
Well, that's who I would battle because he lost the tennis balls. He can't keep up.
Hey, no, you're usually battling with me, and that's usually when it goes wrong, is when I wreck.
Well, hey, you got to get around me somehow. I watched Ryan Newman for years. You just don't pull over.
Hey, that's why I race like a dickhead on freaking iRacing.
Hey, you can get away with it there. It doesn't hurt as much, huh?
It doesn't cost as much either.
Unless it's an $8,000 rig that you don't use.
But if you wreck, it doesn't wreck the rig. You still have your $8,000 rig,
And it's gonna sit there and collect dust.
Well, it doesn't look too dusty, but I don't know why you got white.
Orange and white is my basement.
I know, but like an orange chair would be pretty badass.
They didn't have them, so all I could do is get my wife to make me some orange stenciling letters for my name on the back of the chair.
All right, that works. Anyway, I thank you for joining me. It's great having you on. I can't wait to see you in real life, hopefully soon. You know, you can even drag Buckley or Higgins with you if you come across the border. Just kidnap them. They won't notice. But
they're from Massachusetts. Nobody's gonna come looking for them.
Yeah, no big loss. But excellent. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for everything you've done for the podcast. Whether it be giving me advice, ideas, making logos, animations, or well, basically half the stuff I don't know how to do.
Well, that's what we're here for. We're all a community. We all work together to try and shed knowledge, whether it's on the real world side of things or right here on iRacing.
All right. And once again, you come up here, you let me know, and I'll get some tickets to Schweeken, and we'll head there that Friday night.
Well, I love me some dirt racing and the smell of racing fuel.
All right. Night.
Have a good one.